Cold streets, colder looks. The wind blew hard through the broken metal streets of Outpost Sector 9. The cold was sharp, like little knives cutting through skin. Neon lights flickered above food stalls and dirty signs, but no one looked up. Everyone was busy with their own struggle to survive. In a dark corner near the trash piles, a small figure moved slowly. It was a girl, alien, young, thin like dry bones. Her skin was pale blue and her arms wrapped tightly around herself as she searched through garbage for anything to cover her body. Her clothes were only rags, torn, wet, barely enough to hide her. She shook from the cold, her teeth chattering softly. Her eyes, big and silver, darted side to side, full of fear. She was scared of people. She was scared of being seen. One man walked past her and muttered, "Filthy gutter rat." Another woman looked down at her, then turned away like she had seen nothing. No one helped her. She found an old food wrapper and tried to wrap it around her legs. It tore. She let out a small whimper and fell to her knees. Her stomach growled. Her hands were purple from the cold. She rubbed them together, trying to warm herself. A group of teenage boys passed by. One of them laughed. "Look, it's one of those alien rejects, probably diseased." He picked up a can and threw it. It hit her shoulder. She flinched but stayed silent. They walked away, laughing louder. She curled up behind a trash bin, trying to disappear. She didn't even cry. She had cried too much before. Now, nothing came out. Just silence. Just shaking. Far across the street, a man stood still. His name was Elias, a human, mid-30s, wore a patched coat and boots worn down from long work days. He was not rich. He lived alone. Most people never noticed him, but he noticed her. He had seen her digging in the trash for the last 2 nights. He watched again today. She didn't beg. She didn't steal. She only searched for warmth and food. And when no one gave her anything, she still didn't speak. Elias stepped forward, slowly, carefully. The girl saw his boots approaching and froze. Her body tensed like an animal ready to run. She didn't know who he was or what he wanted. He stopped a few steps away from her. From under his coat, he pulled out something, an old, thick blanket. Worn but warm. He bent down and held it out toward her. No words. The girl's eyes locked on it. She didn't move. Her hands gripped the edge of the trash bin. Elias saw her fear. He gently set the blanket on the ground between them, then stepped back. The girl looked at him, then at the blanket. She waited. She didn't trust him. But after a long moment, she crawled forward. Her hands trembled as she reached out and touched the fabric. It was warm, real. She wrapped it around herself slowly, like she thought someone might rip it away again. Elias still stood there, watching. He didn't smile, he didn't speak. Then the girl's body swayed. Her eyes rolled back. She collapsed. Elias rushed forward, catching her before her head hit the concrete. She was burning with fever. Her skin was ice cold. He held her in his arms, so light, so fragile. He looked around. People stared for a second, then walked away again. No one cared, but Elias did. He pulled the blanket tighter around her and lifted her up. She didn't wake. Her head rested against his chest like a broken doll. He didn't know her name. He didn't know where she came from. But something inside him said one thing: don't let her die. He walked through the cold streets, past the food stalls, past the guards, past the whispers. A few people looked at him and the girl in his arms. One merchant laughed. "Saving stray pets now, Elias?" Elias didn't answer. He just kept walking. His home was small, an old repair shed behind a closed junkyard. But it was warm and safe. He opened the door with one hand and stepped inside. The old heater buzzed in the corner. A soft yellow light flickered. He laid the girl on a small cot, took off his coat, then covered her with another old sheet. She was still breathing, barely. Elias sat beside her and whispered, "You're safe now." The girl didn't move, but for the first time in days her hands stopped shaking, and outside the wind kept howling, but she wasn't out there anymore. The blanket stayed wrapped tightly around her as the girl slowly woke up. Her head hurt. Her body still shook, but not from cold this time, from fear. The surface beneath her was soft, warmer than anything she remembered. A strange smell of oil, rust, and old metal filled her nose. She opened her eyes. The room was dim, but quiet. There was no shouting, no pain, no cages. She saw old tools on the wall, shelves full of scrap. In one corner, a heater buzzed softly. She was in someone's home, but she had never been in a home before. Then she saw the man again, Elias. He was sitting in a chair across the room, drinking something from a tin cup. His eyes met hers, but he didn't move. He didn't smile. He didn't scold her. He just nodded, slowly. She pulled the blanket tighter, like armor. Her body tensed. Her eyes searched for a door, he noticed. "You're safe," Elias said quietly. "No one's coming." The girl didn't answer. Her lips were cracked, her throat too dry to speak. Elias placed his cup down and stood up slowly, like someone trying not to scare an injured animal. He walked over to a small table and picked up a bowl of soup. Steam rose from it gently. He set it near her on a metal stool. "I thought you might be hungry," he said. She stared at it, then at him. "I didn't put anything bad in it," he added. "Just potatoes. A little meat. It's warm." Still, she didn't move. Elias stepped back and sat down again. He didn't push her, didn't force her. He just watched. 5 minutes, Hasta then 10. Her tiny hand reached out, slowly, shaking. She pulled the bowl toward her and sniffed it like a stray animal. Her nose wrinkled at first, but then something in her face changed. She dipped her fingers into the soup, licked them. It was real. Her hands dove in faster now. She drank it like someone who hadn't eaten in days. She spilled half of it on the blanket but didn't care. Her eyes stayed wide as she ate, watching Elias the whole time, unsure if he'd punish her for the mess. But he didn't. He just sat quietly. When she finished, she clutched the bowl like it might vanish. Her breathing slowed. She finally looked. At Elias, really looked. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but all that came out was a whisper. "Why?" Elias tilted his head. "Why, what?" Her voice was small, fragile. "Why help me?" He didn't answer right away. Then he stood, walked to the window, and looked out. The wind was blowing dust across the junkyard. "I saw you 3 nights ago," he said, "digging through garbage, wrapped in plastic." She blinked. "I thought maybe someone would help, but no one did. Then I saw you again. Still out there, still cold." He turned back to her. "I've lost people. I know that look in your eyes." She didn't understand all his words, but she understood enough. She lowered her head. "I don't need anything from you," Elias said. "You don't owe me. I just didn't want you to die." Her shoulders tightened. The blanket slipped off one side of her body, revealing a glimpse of her back and the scars. Long, cruel marks, like someone had used a whip or blade. Old ones. New ones. Elias looked away, trying not to stare. She pulled the blanket back over her quickly. Her face turned red. He didn't ask, didn't question, just said, "You can rest here tonight. Tomorrow we'll talk." The girl sat in silence for a long time. Her fingers rubbed the edge of the blanket again and again, like she was checking. It was still real. That night, Elias gave her an old mattress and more blankets. He made his bed on the floor with a pillow and jacket. He didn't try to touch her, didn't try to lock her in. Before the light went out, she whispered again. "Name?" He looked up. "Ari." He nodded. "Nice to meet you, Ari. I'm Elias." She gave a tiny nod, and for the first time in her life, Someone said her name without hate in their voice. She curled up under the blanket. Her body still hurt, and her heart still feared, but in this quiet place she finally closed her eyes, and this time she wasn't afraid of sleeping. The morning light slipped through the broken window like soft fingers touching the cold floor. A quiet hum came from the old heater. Dust floated in the air. Everything inside the little room was still, except the girl. Ari sat up, the blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders. Her eyes looked around, wide and alert. For a moment, she had forgotten where she was. There was no shouting, no chains, no steel floors under her feet. Only warmth, only silence. Elias wasn't there. She looked toward the door. It was unlocked. For most of her life, doors were either locked or dangerous. When they opened, something bad usually happened. But this one just stood open. No guard, no shouting, just the soft sound of wind outside. Ari stood up slowly. Her body was weak. Her legs shook. But she took a few steps forward. Blanket, still wrapped like armor around her. She peeked out the door. Elias was outside near the junk piles. He was fixing an old machine, wiping oil from his hands with a cloth. His coat was off, and the sun lit his tired face. He hadn't noticed her yet. Ari stepped outside without a sound. The air was cooler than inside, but not painful like the nights before. Her eyes moved to the junkyard fence. She could run. She could leave. No one was holding her back. Maybe she should. Maybe she had to. But something strange pulled at her. She turned to look at Elias again. He was focused on his work, unaware of her gaze. She took another step forward, but her foot landed on a loose metal plate. It clanked loudly. Elias looked up. Their eyes met. She froze. He stood slowly, wiping his hands, and walked over to her. He didn't shout, didn't grab her, just stood beside her, looking out over the dusty yard. "Thought you might try to leave," he said calmly. She lowered her eyes. "But you didn't," he added. Ari clutched the blanket tighter. "You hungry?" She gave a small nod. He smiled gently and turned toward the door. "Come inside. I made something." Inside, the small table now had 2 bowls of hot porridge. Simple, but warm. He waited for her to sit. She hesitated, then slowly lowered herself into the chair. They ate in silence, but this silence was not the kind that hurt. It was calm. Safe. After a few bites, Ari looked at him. Her voice was rough but clear. "You don't lock me?" Elias shook his head. "No." "No chain?" "No, chain. Why?" He stirred his porridge slowly. "Because you're not an animal. And this isn't a prison." She didn't know what to say to that. When she finished, she looked down at her hands. "I don't belong here." Elias leaned back in his chair. "Why not?" She shook her head. "I don't know how to be this. This? Safe." Those words hit him harder than he expected. He looked at her, really looked. Her small frame, her sharp shoulders, the way she flinched at every sound. This girl had lived her whole life like a creature in a cage. "You don't have to do anything special," he said softly. "Just be here." "But I'm not human." "So?" "No one keeps aliens. Not like this. Not with kindness." Elias sighed. "I'm not most people." She didn't smile, but her eyes softened a little. Later that day, Elias showed her around the junkyard. He explained how he found old machines, took them apart, and sold the working pieces. "It's not much," he said, "but it pays for food." She followed him quietly, every step unsure, every breath still tight. He gave her a task, sorting small parts by size. Her hands were slow, unsure, but he didn't correct her harshly. Just watched, nodded, and said, "You're doing fine." Hours passed. As the sun began to set, Ari sat on a pile of old tires, watching the sky turn orange. She didn't speak. She just looked up, like it was the first time she ever had the right to enjoy the view. Elias sat beside her. After a long pause, she said quietly, "I had a brother once." He turned toward her. "They took him away. I never saw him again. Then they came for me." Elias didn't ask who they were. "I stopped talking after that," she continued. "Talking brought pain." He nodded. "I thought kindness was fake," she whispered. "A trap, a trick." "And now?" She didn't answer for a long moment. Then, with a voice like cracked glass, she whispered, "Now I don't know what to believe." Elias stood and held out his hand. "Then stay, until you figure it out." She looked at his hand. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, and for the first time Ari didn't pull away. Days passed quietly. Ari stayed. She didn't speak much, but she didn't run either. Every morning, Elias made breakfast and set 2 bowls on the table. At first she only ate half, then more, and soon she was finishing the whole bowl without looking over her shoulder like a thief. She began to move more freely inside the small home. She cleaned the floor one day, fixed a loose wire the next. Elias never asked her to do it, but she did it anyway. It was like she was searching for a reason to stay. Sometimes Elias caught her staring at the mirror in the corner, touching her face, confused. Maybe she hadn't seen herself in a long time. Maybe she was trying to understand who she was now, but still. She flinched when anyone came too close, even Elias. One evening, a sudden loud noise outside made her drop a glass bowl. It shattered on the ground. Her hands covered her ears. Her whole body crouched to the floor, trembling. It took Elias a long minute to calm her. He didn't ask why. He already knew. But that night when she fell asleep on the cot, the blanket slid down slightly. Elias saw something that made him freeze. Her back. Not just one scar. Many. Deep. Old. Fresh. Crisscrossed like a map of pain. He stood in silence, fists clenched. Whoever had done that to her had treated her like she was nothing. The next morning, he didn't mention what he saw, but she did. As they shared breakfast, she didn't touch her spoon. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked in a low voice. Elias paused, then nodded. She looked down. "I was punished when I asked for food, when I moved too slow, when I looked them in the eyes." Her fingers shook slightly. "The masters said I was weak, worthless, not good for breeding, not good for selling either, so they used me, until I broke." Elias's throat tightened. Who were they? She didn't say their names, only whispered. Merchants, slavers. From the lower moons, he understood. That part of the galaxy was lawless. Slavery wasn't just common, it was business. Ari looked up, her eyes shining. "Why are you different?" "I'm human," he said quietly. "And where I'm from, we protect the weak." Her voice cracked. "Then why do so many humans turn away?" Elias had no answer. She nodded like she already knew that silence. "When I ran, I thought someone would help, but the guards laughed, the people spat. One woman gave me a rotten sandwich and then pushed me into the gutter. They all said I was just an alien thing, not even a real girl." "But you are a real girl," Elias said firmly. She stared at him. That's the first time someone said that. Later that day, Ari asked if she could help with repairs. Elias gave her a pair of gloves and showed her how to tighten bolts on a small engine. Her hands were small but focused. She listened carefully. He realized then she was smart. Not just smart, quick, curious, precise. He started to teach her names of tools, parts, how to listen to the sound of a sick machine. She remembered everything. That night, they sat together, outside on the scrap heap watching the stars. Ari leaned her head slightly on her knees. "I still dream of cages, and the whip, and cold." "You'll heal," Elias said. She looked at him with honest eyes. Maybe. But scars don't leave, do they? He thought for a moment, then said, no. But sometimes they stop hurting and become reminders that you survived. She smiled a little, not wide, but real. Then, in the distance, headlights approached. A patrol truck, government badge on the side, soldiers. Ari jumped to her feet, panic in her eyes. Elias stood in front of her. Stay calm. But her breathing got faster. They're here for me, I know it. They're tracking runaways. The truck stopped outside the gate. 2 men in armor stepped out. One knocked on the fence. We're looking for a small blue alien girl, escaped from a slaver ship. Dangerous. Last seen in this zone. Elias opened the gate slowly. Haven't seen anyone like that, he said coolly. One soldier looked past him toward the shed. You sure? Elias didn't blink. Positive. The second soldier narrowed his eyes. You live alone? Yeah, Elias said. Just me. And my broken machines. The soldiers exchanged a look, then nodded. If you see anything, report it. There's a reward. They left. Elias shut the gate. Ari came out of hiding from behind a pile of crates, tears running down her cheeks. They'll come again, she said. They always do. Elias looked at her and replied calmly, then let them. He walked up to her, close, but didn't touch her. Just stood beside her. Next time, he said, they'll have to fight me to take you. And this time, Ari didn't step back. She just whispered, why? His answer was simple. Because you're not a thing, Ari. You're family now. Ari couldn't sleep that night. Even though the heater buzzed quietly and the blanket still held her body in its warmth, her mind refused to rest. She lay curled on the cot, staring at the dark ceiling, her heart pounding in her chest like a warning drum. They had come looking for her. Soldiers, real ones, with weapons and orders. They didn't wear chains or whip belts, but their eyes were cold, just like the slavers who used to own her. Elias had lied to protect her, but she knew what it meant. Danger was growing. Morning came with a silent sky and a soft breeze blowing dust across the junkyard. Elias was already outside, hammering at an old power core. Ari stepped out slowly, watching him. He looked calm, like nothing had changed, but everything had. Elias, she said. He looked up. Hey, you hungry? She didn't answer. She stepped closer. You should let me go. He froze, the hammer stopped in his hand. They'll come back, she said. They'll search better next time. You'll lose everything, your home, your life. Elias leaned against the junked machine and wiped sweat from his brow. And you'll die alone out there. Is that what you want? Ari looked away. No. But it's better than someone dying because of me. He placed the hammer down gently and walked toward her. When I picked you up that night, you were already dying. Starving. Freezing. I didn't let you go then. And I won't now. But why? She whispered. You don't owe me anything. He looked straight into her eyes. Maybe not, but someone needs to show you that not everyone turns away. Her lips trembled. She had no answer. That afternoon they worked together in the junkyard. Ari sorted scrap. Elias repaired circuits. The sun burned overhead, but their hands stayed, busy. It was the only way to keep fear from creeping back into their minds. Then a shadow moved at the edge of the fence. A tall figure stood watching them, not in a uniform, but in a dark coat, with glowing glasses and metal gloves. Elias noticed. First, his hand moved slowly toward a nearby wrench. The stranger stepped forward, smiling. Nice setup you've got here. Can I help you? Elias asked sharply. I'm not from the patrol, the man said. I'm freelance. I track things. People lose. He took out a hologram pad. With one swipe, it displayed Ari's face. Dirty, cold, from her days on the street. There's a price on this girl's head, he said calmly. 3,000 credits. Alive. Ari froze. Elias stepped in front of her. The man continued. The patrol doesn't have the resources to check every shed, every dump. But I do, and I'm not here to hurt anyone, just to do my job. I already told the soldiers, Elias said. No one like that's here. The man smirked. Then you won't mind if I take a look around? Ari's heart raced. Elias smiled. Calm. Cold. Actually, I would mind. The man raised an eyebrow. Is that a threat? No, Elias said. It's a warning. The stranger looked at Elias's hands. Greasy. Tired. But strong. You'd fight over some alien girl? Elias nodded. Yes. The man stared at him for a long second, then laughed. You're either stupid or brave. I'm both. He chuckled again, backing off. All right, I won't push today, but someone will. That reward is climbing. A lot of people will come looking soon. You can't stop them all. He turned and walked away, his voice floating behind him like, smoke, she's not just wanted, she's valuable. After he disappeared down the road, Elias didn't speak. Ari stood frozen. I'm not worth 3 credits, why would they offer 3,000? Elias shook his head slowly. I don't know. Maybe it's not just about who you are. Maybe it's what you carry, or what you've seen. She looked down at her hands. I don't understand. You don't need to, he said. But you do need to stay hidden. But I'm putting you in danger again. Elias looked at her. Let me ask you something. If it was me running and you were the one with a warm shed and a blanket, would you turn me away? Her answer came without hesitation. No. Then stop asking me to. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away with her sleeve. Then, I'll stay, I'll help, I won't be a burden. You're not a burden, Ari. That night she didn't sleep on the cot. She sat beside Elias on the floor back against the wall. They stayed up late, whispering about stars, machines, and stories from Earth she had never heard. And when the wind blew outside again, she didn't shake like before, because for the first time she knew someone would fight for her and she would fight for him too. The next morning the sun never really showed. Clouds hung heavy over the outpost sky, turning everything gray. But it wasn't just the weather that felt heavy. Something was coming. Elias felt it. Ari felt it too. The air was tight, quiet, waiting. She helped him quietly that morning, sorting wires, organizing bolts. But both of them kept glancing toward the front gate. The memory of the bounty hunter in the black coat still echoed in Ari's mind. 3,000 credits. For her. She didn't know why she was worth that much. What? Secret she held. But the truth was simple. Someone powerful wanted her back. And that meant danger wasn't far behind. I should go, Ari said, standing still beside the bench. Elias looked up from the motor he was fixing. We already talked about this. I don't mean running, she said. I mean disappearing. Elias stood slowly. What do you mean? Ari took a breath. There's an old transport tunnel under the scrapyard. I saw the hatch when we cleaned the west end. If I go through it and keep walking, I could reach the canyon. Nobody will follow me that far. You'll die out there. Maybe, she whispered. But at least you'll live. Elias frowned. That's not a trade I'm willing to make. Ari stepped closer. You've given me warmth, food, a name, but this world doesn't let people like me keep good things. This world, Elias said firmly, can go to hell. But before she could answer, a loud crack echoed through the air. They both froze. Another sound. Metal being bent. Footsteps. Voices. They ran to the front of the yard. Through the fence slats, they saw them. 6 men. Armed. Not patrol guards this time. These wore scavenger gear. Mixed armor. Rusted helmets. They weren't here for the law. They were here for money. One of them shouted, "We know she's in there. Give her up and we won't burn your place to the ground." Elias didn't move. Ari stood behind him, breath short. "I have an idea," he said softly. "The tunnel. You go. What about you?" "I'll slow them down. Buy you time." "No." He turned and looked her in the eyes. Go, Ari. If you mean to live, then fight by surviving. Her lips trembled. But then she nodded. Okay. She ran. Elias walked toward the gate. When the scavengers pushed through the weak fence, he stood, tall, unarmed. The leader grinned. Where is she? Elias crossed his arms. Gone. The man raised his weapon. You think we're idiots? No, Elias said. I just think you're late. Another man kicked over a barrel. Check the shed. Elias stepped forward. You break anything and I'll make sure you never walk straight again. The leader laughed. Big words for a man with no backup. Elias smiled slowly. You ever tried fixing a plasma core with your fingers burned off? I have. So go. Ahead. Try me. The tension rose. One of the scavengers raised his blaster, but the leader held up a hand. Fine. She's not here. Let's go. But it wasn't over. As they turned to leave, a scream echoed from behind the junk piles. Ari! She hadn't made it to the hatch in time. One of the scavengers had circled around and grabbed her. She kicked, bit, scratched, but he held her tight, dragging her forward. The leader laughed. Guess she didn't run far enough. Elias moved before anyone else. He ran like a wild storm, grabbed a metal pipe, and swung hard. The man holding Ari collapsed instantly. Another one came at him, blaster raised. Elias tackled him, slamming him into a heap of scrap. A shot fired, missed. Sparks flew. Elias ducked, swung again. Another down. But the leader grabbed Ari by her arm and pointed a blaster at her head. One more step and she dies. Elias froze. His chest rose and fell like a machine overheating. He dropped the pipe. The leader smiled. See? Even brave men know fear. But then Ari did something no one expected. She bit him. Hard. He screamed, loosened his grip, and she kicked his leg, sending him crashing down. Elias moved in an instant. This time, he didn't hesitate. He knocked the blaster away and punched the man so hard his helmet flew off. Silence. The last scavenger dropped his weapon and ran. Elias stood over the leader, who was groaning on the ground. He looked at Ari. She was breathing fast, shaking, but her eyes were clear. You okay? Elias asked. She nodded. Yeah. They stood together in the middle of the wreckage, surrounded by broken machines, scattered weapons, and the truth. There was no running anymore. Ari looked up at him. I'm done hiding. Elias smiled, his face bleeding but proud. Good. Because now, we stand. Smoke rose slowly from the edge of the scrapyard, curling into the gray sky like a warning. The battle was over, but the damage remained. Burned metal, shattered tools, and a blood trail across the ground where Elias had fallen and gotten back, up again, twice. Inside the shed, Ari sat on the floor beside him. She pressed a cloth against his shoulder. His face was bruised, lip cracked, and his left arm wouldn't move properly. But he was alive, breathing, still stubborn. You should have let me go, she whispered. And miss all this fun? He said through a weak smile. Tears filled her eyes. She looked at the blaster burns on the walls, the broken machines. Everything he had built could have been destroyed. Why do you keep risking yourself for me? She asked softly. Elias looked at her. Really looked. You asked me that before, he said. But you still don't see it. See what? He reached out and gently touched her shoulder. You're not a stranger anymore, Ari. You're not a burden. You're not something lost. You're home. She couldn't speak. His voice grew softer. You gave me a reason to fight again, to care. Before you came, I was just fixing junk, wasting time, waiting to die alone. But now, I see life again. Through you. She shook her head. But I'm broken. So am I. They both laughed softly, even though his ribs hurt when he did. Suddenly, outside, an engine rumbled. A sleek black patrol ship landed beyond the fence, official government mark on the side. Ari's body tensed. No, Not again. Elias forced himself to sit up straighter. Stay behind me. But this time the people who came down were different. A tall woman in clean silver armor stepped forward. She wore no helmet and carried no weapon in hand. Her eyes were sharp but kind. She walked slowly toward the gate, lifted her badge, and said, "My name is Commander Ryla of the Interstellar Refugee Authority. I'm not here to arrest. I'm here to protect." Ari peeked out from behind Elias. "Protect who?" "You," Ryla said. "You escaped from a slaver ring. We've been trying to bring down that network for years. You're not just a victim, Ari. You're a witness. What you know could help us save hundreds like you." Ari stepped forward. Her voice was quiet. "You don't want to send me back?" Ryla shook her head. "No. We want to offer you shelter, safety, and citizenship if you choose." Elias stood beside her. "And what about me?" The commander smiled. "You've already done more than most soldiers ever would. You'll be honored, rewarded, or, if you wish, allowed to adopt her officially." Ari turned to Elias. Her hands gripped his coat. "I don't want to go without you." "You won't," he said firmly. "We stay together." Ryla nodded. "Then come, both of you." Hours later, they rode in the warm cabin of the government ship. Ari sat beside Elias, her hand quietly holding his. She stared out the window as the scrapyard became smaller and smaller, until it disappeared behind the clouds. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running from something. She was being taken somewhere with hope. Weeks passed. Ari was taken to a safe facility. She was given food, new clothes, even papers that said she was no longer a slave, but a person with rights. Elias stayed with her every step, attending every meeting, answering every question. One day, in a quiet ceremony under a tree with golden leaves, Elias was handed a small card. "Official Guardian," it read. Ari stood beside him in a simple, white dress, her hair clean and her back finally healing. "You don't have to call me father," he said softly. "I know," she whispered back. "But I will." He smiled, eyes wet. Later that night, as stars filled the sky again, Elias walked her into their new home, small, warm, and filled with light. She looked around in silence. It wasn't a junkyard. It wasn't a cage. It wasn't just shelter. It was home. And as she stepped inside, Elias reached out with the same blanket from that first cold night, washed and repaired, and gently placed it on her shoulders. "Come home," he said again. And this time she did. With no fear, with no doubt, with a full heart.